Hi, I'm Cassidy. Today I'll be showing you some of my favorite ways to use yoga blocks in my practice. I use yoga blocks all the time for extra support and stability. They can be a great way to modify different postures to feel best in your body, and they're a good thing to have nearby during your yoga practice. There's some different kinds of blocks, and today I'll just be using two foam blocks. I recommend having two so you have plenty of different ways to use them, and most will either come in foam or cork. Cork blocks are nice if you're looking for something a little more sturdy and supportive, but foam are great as well. Remember to like and subscribe if you found this video helpful, and let's get started. So first of all, there's 3 different levels that you can set your yoga block at. This is the lowest setting, the medium setting, and the highest setting. You might have to play around a little bit to see what works best for your body. One of the ways that I like to use yoga blocks in my practice is in seated postures. So the first way I'll be showing you today is just in an easy seat. So cross-legged. And to use your block here, you can simply just slide it underneath your seat. And doing this will allow you to lengthen the spine a little bit easier, and it can help you out if you have tight hamstrings and this pose is a little bit uncomfortable for you. You can leave that block there for other seated postures, such as seated forward fold as well. In seated forward fold, having the block there will allow you to keep a nice flat spine. Another way to use yoga blocks in seated postures is in hero's pose, which is just sitting onto the heels. This can be a good alternative pose to easy seat as a way to start class or just as a comfortable seated position, but sometimes it can be a little intense through the legs. So a way to modify this is simply by tucking a block in between the legs right underneath the seat, and this will help to lengthen the spine as well. You'll probably want your blocks on the lowest setting here, just so you have enough space to actually sit onto it. But if you're looking for a little bit extra support, you could stack 2 blocks on top of one another, just to make a nice supportive seat for yourself in hero's pose. We can use yoga blocks to modify lots of common yoga postures. So we'll be going through 3 different postures that appear in Sun Salutation A and are likely to appear in lots of vinyasa yoga classes, and talking about how you can use props and specifically yoga blocks in these poses. So the first is downward facing dog. So you'll want 2 blocks for each of these, the 3 that we'll go through, and you'll just place them on their lowest setting, about shoulder distance apart. And then just come into your downward facing dog, and you can play around with it a little bit if you need to move them a little bit farther apart or closer together. And this helps to stabilize the shoulders, bring the ground a little bit closer to you, and can help to relieve some wrist pain as well. So it's really all about seeing what feels good in your body. From your downward facing dog, if you are coming into plank, you can leave the blocks there as well. We'll come back into downward facing dog and step forward to forward fold. Good. In our forward fold, we can use our blocks for our halfway lift. So for halfway lift, I like to turn them on their medium or highest setting and just place my hands on them as I lengthen the spine into my halfway lift. Again, just bringing the ground a little bit closer to you. We can also use yoga blocks in several different standing postures, so we'll be going through some of those today. So let's start by coming into our Warrior 2. Good, and the first way we can use our yoga block is in side angle pose. So for side angle, we'll bring the front elbow onto the front knee, and then lift the top hand to the sky. Good. How you can use your yoga block here is by placing it in front of that front leg and then resting the bottom hand on it. Good. So just a little bit different of a sensation in this posture. And if you're looking to have a little bit of fun in this pose and take the intensity up a notch, you could grab your block and extend both arms forward and get a little bit of core work as well. So we'll place the block back on the ground and come back to our warrior two. From here, straighten out that front leg, and then we're going to place the block right by our front foot. And it's up to you here whether you place it in front of that foot or behind it. But we're moving into triangle pose. So you'll bring your front hand onto that block and then lift the top arm to the sky. Both legs are straight here. And I always like to use my block in this pose. I think it just makes it so that the hips stay in alignment, and having the ground a bit closer really can be helpful. And you can play around with settings here. Personally, I like to start with mine on the highest setting and then maybe move it down to the medium or low setting depending on how I'm feeling. From our triangle pose, if we were moving right into half moon, and we're not quite feeling that our balance is where we want it to be and we're looking for some extra support, we can come into half moon and use that block right there as a support. Then maybe we try to lift one finger or the whole hand off of the block to work on gradually building up some balance. Next, we're going to go over how to use the yoga block to help us out in some of our lunge positions, specifically in a low lunge. So we'll make our way into a low lunge, and just for the sake of demonstration, drop the back knee. But you can do this with the back knee lifted or lowered. Good, and then just have your blocks right under your hands. And you can flip them on their highest setting. It's really up to you here. And once again, this can help to relieve some pain through the wrists. And if you're flowing back and forth between crescent moon and, say, half splits, it can be nice to not have to reach all the way to the ground each time. Good. Also, I really like having my blocks here if I'm moving into a low lunge twist. So just having that block inside of the foot, placing the hand on it, and then opening up for our twist. It can really help to lengthen through the top arm and just get the most out of this twist posture. Next, we can also use the yoga block in our pigeon pose. And this is something that I really recommend if you have tight hamstrings, and many of us do. So from our pigeon pose, if we're noticing that we're in a little bit of pain or a little bit of discomfort here, maybe we'd like to be able to fold forward a little bit, but we're not quite there, I'd recommend just tucking a yoga block right under the front hip. And I like to have it on its lowest setting, but you could play around with this. You could even add a blanket on top of the yoga block if it's a little uncomfortable for you. And then from here, you can just go about your pigeon pose, maybe bowing forward or doing whatever works best for you. But that'll just add a little bit of support, raising the hip and giving a little bit of leniency to the hamstrings here. Finally, I wanted to show you how to use your block to enhance some different supine postures. So first, we're going to be finding reclined bound angle. So soles of the feet are together, knees are spreading apart, or we have our butterfly legs. And this can be a really nice, relaxing hip opener. But say you want to hold it for a while and you want it to be a little bit gentler, or it's a little intense on the hips and through the legs. You can take 2 blocks and simply just place them underneath the knees, maybe moving them up to their medium setting, and just allowing the knees to fall onto the yoga blocks. Good, that'll just make it a little bit less intense of a hip opener. Another way that we can use our blocks in supine positions is to find a supported fish pose. So for supported fish pose, there's lots of different options with the blocks here. The way I like to start is placing one vertically, and that will be along my spine, and then one where my head will be, and that one will be horizontal. The middle or the bottom one is going to be on its medium setting to start, and I'm going to put the top one on its medium setting as well. So then simply you'll lay back onto these. The top one is for your head, and then the middle one is going to be just right in between the shoulder blades. and you might have to play around with this and adjust a little bit. Good. From here, if you'd like, you can lower the setting of the block under your head to intensify this opening through the chest a little bit. Good. So let's find one more supine, reclined posture using the yoga block. And another way that I really like to use my block in my practice is for bridge pose. So, actually, supported bridge pose when we use the block. So, starting by just coming into your regular bridge pose, lifting through the center of the body, we would just take the block and slide it right underneath the tailbone. Then it'll just allow us to relax into this posture. If I'm looking to make bridge a little bit more supportive and gentle, and a little bit less about engaging my muscles, I'll definitely just tuck a block under there to make it more supportive. Thank you so much for joining me for this tutorial on some ways to use yoga blocks within your practice. I hope this was helpful to you, and if you have questions about different ways to modify other yoga poses or different props and how to use them, I'd be happy to help you out by responding to your comment or even making a video showing you how to use them in your practice. Once again, thanks so much for joining me, and remember to like and subscribe if you found this helpful, and I'll see you next time.